Today, it's your turn to talk, and joining us in the studio is Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell. There is plenty to cover, but this is really about you. You've got the mayor's ear now, so call 615-760-2000 with your question or comment. The mayor is listening. Then we'll round out the hour by getting a better understanding of the size of the Metro Council and whether a 40 or 20 member council is right for the city. That's coming up after this hour's news, so stay with us. This is Nashville.
Sharing news and stories from the voices of Middle Tennessee. This is Nashville. Our show is made possible by Music City Prep Clinic. This is Nashville is in service to you. So if you have an idea for the show or feedback you'd like us to hear, leave us a voice message at 615-751-2500.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The House of Representatives will take up a package to cut funding for foreign aid and public media today. NPR's Lexi Shapitl has details.
The Senate voted early Thursday to pass an amended version of the package, which rescinds about $1 billion in funding for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting and more than $7 billion in foreign aid funding. Senators removed $400 million in cuts to PEPFAR, a program that funds HIV/AIDS treatment and prevention around the world, from the original House version of the bill. The measure passed the House narrowly last month after several Republican holdouts flipped their votes to support the package. A vote on final passage could take place as early as this evening. Ahead of the vote, Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought told reporters the administration will likely send additional rescissions packages to Congress once this one is across the finish line. Lexi Shapitl, NPR News, Washington.
Emil Bovie's nomination to be judge on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals has advanced to the full Senate for a vote over ethics concerns raised on both sides of the aisle. The GOP-led committee's decision to advance the Trump allies' nomination touched off verbal clashes as the chair, Chuck Grassley, proceeded.
We'll go to Bovie's nomination. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege.
Mr. Chairman.
Later, Democratic Senator Cory Booker accused Grassley of circumventing Senate rules.
With all appeals to past jurisdiction and past precedent, why are you doing this? This is outrageous.
This is a kangaroo court. That's all we have here, Mr. Chairman.
This is wrong. To violate your own rules without going by the mandates of the parliamentarian. This is unbelievable.
All Democrats, except for Booker, left the hearing without voting on advancing Bovie's nomination. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has nominated a new ambassador to the United States. As she awaits confirmation, he has appointed her as a special envoy for the development of cooperation with the United States. NPR's Polina Litvinova reports from Kyiv. She was previously the Minister of Justice and the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration.
In his post on social media, President Zelensky wrote Olga Stefanishina would work as the special envoy while, quote, all the necessary procedures for approving her candidacy for the position of ambassador of Ukraine to the United States with Washington are ongoing. Zelensky noted Stefanishina participated in negotiations with the U.S. on a new format of economic cooperation between the two countries and will keep working to maintain these relations. The new role for Stefanishina is part of Zelensky's proposed government reshuffle. Polina Litvinova, NPR News, Kyiv.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. You're listening to NPR News. Israel had conducted airstrikes on targets in downtown Damascus, and the UN Security Council was expected to hold a hearing today. On X, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz had posted a video of a TV News live shot in Damascus in which a building was seen exploding behind the presenter. The strikes followed ongoing tensions in southwest Syria, home to the minority Druze, whose community straddles the border between Israel-occupied Golan Heights and Syria. British scientists say they can safely prevent certain devastating inherited disorders by creating 3-parent babies. NPR's Rob Stein explains.
Doctors at Newcastle University say they helped families plagued by rare but often terrible inherited diseases known as mitochondrial disorders give birth to 8 apparently healthy babies. They did it by mixing most of the genes of the parents who want healthy children into an egg containing a small amount of healthy DNA from another woman to produce a healthy baby with genetic material from 3 different people. The research is being hailed as a breakthrough in the quest to use new genetic technologies to prevent inherited diseases. But some worry the work could lead to troubling consequences, including so-called designer babies. Rob Stein, NPR News.
The Dow is up 127 points. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. And Amazon, proud sponsor of WPLN's daily show, This Is Nashville. Engaging our differences so we can discover our unity. More on Amazon's community work at aboutamazon.com.
From Nashville Public Radio, I'm Cynthia Abrams, and this is Nashville. Today, it's your turn to talk, and joining us in the studio is Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell. There is plenty to cover, but this is really about you. You've got the mayor's ear now. So call 615-760-2000 with your question or comment. The mayor is listening. Then we'll round out the hour by getting a better understanding of the size of the Metro Council and whether a 40 or 20 member council is right for the city. That's coming up after this hour's news, so stay with us. This is Nashville. And as always, please remember the mayor and his staff are human beings just like you and me, so respect is a must. If you're elated about a policy or if you're downright mad at our local government, that's cool. Just show respect and care when expressing your thoughts and feelings. We'll start off with just some questions we've got for Mayor O'Connell, but thank you so much.
Glad to be back, Cynthia. And I will say there have been some changes in the studio since my last visit.
It looks a little different. We are live streaming this episode. If you want to go to This Is Nashville's YouTube page, you can watch our conversation instead of listen to it.
Oh, there you go. Very exciting.
Very exciting. To start us off, earlier this week, the Nashville Public Library Board met to discuss the damage to the main library branch after the adjacent parking garage caught fire in mid-June. For those who might not know, 2 levels of the parking garage, which is operated by the Nashville Downtown Partnership, burned, along with multiple cars inside. Nothing in the library burned, but there was smoke damage, and the library has been closed for the last month. Mayor, can you tell us, you used to represent parts of downtown. Mm-hmm. What does the main branch mean to its neighbors, and what has the closure meant for people who really rely on its services?
Yeah, there is a lot happening just from that one incident, Cynthia. You probably have some awareness of this. I think you had covered some things related to it, but the downtown library, the main branch itself is one of the crown jewels of a great library system. You probably remember back in 2017, they were recognized as Library of the Year, and it's a place where they just a handful of years ago upgraded the children's section. There's a great theater. You can still see Tom Titchener's puppets. Some of them actually just got refurbished and brought back to life in a puppet show. They've done so much with teen programming. They have a really magnificent approach to social services in the main branch. They have areas of support. I mean, I guess I would say it this way. The downtown library is so much more than just stacks of books and periodicals and media. It is a community center. And if you walk in the doors, you'll see all kinds of clubs and activities. They have conference rooms that are constantly in use. I mean, we've had meetings of the Regional Transportation Authority and Greater Nashville Regional Council there. The auditorium was just recently home to the Preservation Awards for Metro Historic. Right across the street is Church Street Park, which has kind of been, upgraded and renovated in recent years. And then, of course, there is the garage itself, which serves so many different organizations, including library patrons and staff, but also the Renaissance Hotel across the street has used it. They've got contracts with area businesses that use it on a regular basis. And so even if this were just about closure of the garage, that would have an impact. But the fact that it has caused the entire downtown branch to be closed for several weeks is tough. And there was smoke damage inside, and so there will have to be some things that will need restoration. And it's complex because you have parks across the street, library operating the actual library. NDOT is responsible for the garage itself just as a parking structure, but that has been contractually managed by Nashville Downtown Partnership, which had a subcontractor, Block by Block. So there are a lot of organizations in that very small footprint of the city that has pretty significant impact.
So the library parking garage is, as you said, one of the most affordable parking options downtown. Does NDOT know what's next for the future of the garage?
No, there's a tough decision because I think what has happened is we've had inspectors in there, and this is a thing. A few different other complexities. We added levels to the garage over the past few years. There was actually a structural deficiency discovered, and so we actually shored up and strengthened the garage so that it has additional capacity and was supposed to have a long life. And this incident obviously puts a lot of pressure on that because we think lower levels could be salvaged, but then we're back into that. How do we put upper levels safely back on top? And is it actually now better given the condition of the overall garage just to start from scratch, demolish and rebuild? And so I don't think a decision has been made there, and I think they're looking at cost, timeline. We've got complicated insurance proceedings that will factor into how much the cost actually is, and so I think we're still in that period of analysis. We're hoping, though, that the library itself will be able to open again by late summer or fall.
Okay, they said July 29th, but I know that is kind of fluid.
Yeah, I think they were still looking at, what I heard was one of the elevator banks kind of closest to the garage had some issues, and they may have to open in phases, right? I know they had looked at organizations scheduling activities in the conference rooms, the auditorium. I think they have delayed a lot of those out past July, and it may be that the auditorium doesn't open even when other main sections of the library do. I just don't know if they've gotten all the details right. But yeah, fingers crossed, we can get the library itself back open again sometime soon.
I just want to ask, before we head to some of our callers, what would you say to residents who are struggling to afford parking downtown?
We do have other nearby public garages. The ones that I have used on a regular basis are the one at WeGo Central. There is one there that is a part of the WeGo facility up above, and so that one's a good one. The City Hall and Courthouse garage is a good one. We have the convention center, as long as there is not a huge amount of events happening right in the convention center or kind of at Bridgestone or something. That's another good one. Just up the hill on the south side of the garage area is at the Fulton Complex. We have another public garage up there. So there are a lot of options. We've also modernized some of the on-street parking, so you don't have to fish for quarters. You can get pretty reasonable on-street parking if you can find a spot there. And then, of course, the best option of all now, especially since we just expanded service a couple Saturdays ago, is we have great new service levels on WeGo as for part of our first implementation pathway for Choose How You Move. So less than a year from passage of the Choose How You Move Transit Improvement Program by referendum, with Nashville voters supporting it, we've got our first round of service changes here this July that should make downtown much, much more accessible for people coming from multiple parts of the city.
Okay. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, WPLN's Metro reporter, Cynthia Abrams, here with Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell. We are taking your calls. I want to head to one of our callers, Tara, who works in Nashville as a landscape architect. Tara, what's your question? Sorry, Tara, for some technical difficulties. One moment. In the meantime, Mayor, I have some questions for you.
We'll figure out some way to get Tara on here.
In the meantime, I have a question about, we saw the Metro Council this week talking about downtown, expanded the Business Improvement District, which provides extra services.
Oh, we might have Tara.
Oh, let's. I'll keep going.
All right, we'll keep
Sorry
going. Sorry if you missed it. Try calling back and we'll see if we can get you on.
We are working on it. We expanded the Business Improvement District, which provides extra services downtown, to include the Gulch. The council approved that move. Can you talk a little bit about what this change means?
Yeah, I don't know that it will have a ton of overnight impact. And this is a complicated discussion because the Nashville Downtown Partnership supervised 2 adjacent business improvement districts. There's a central business improvement district for downtown core. There was a Gulch business improvement district that already existed. And this basically consolidated, and I haven't looked at the final boundaries, but expanded the footprint a little bit. And basically what it does is a surcharge on property owners to fund this organization offering things like you've probably seen. Yellow Jacketed Ambassadors downtown. They do a lot of cleanup after special events, kind of supplementing what NDOT has done in the past with litter, what our new waste services division will do in terms of standard trash collection downtown, which very often the baseline of service that we are required to provide does not support the amount of foot traffic and event traffic that we get. And so they do a lot to kind of keep places like Church Street Park up and running and programmed, and they've started beautifying Walk of Fame Park. I think in the near term, again, you won't see a lot of overnight changes. What you'll see is a little bit more consistency in terms of those additional services that range from the Gulch all the way into downtown itself. You'll probably continue to see the partnership offer better programming and upkeep for urban parks, which has been a challenge as we've again seen more people in downtown. And so what I was interested in as the Metro Council considered this, Councilmember Coupin, who's my successor and now my council member, had this legislation up, and it seemed like there was a lot of interest and more accountability for the organizations that kind of operate this stuff. So I think that's probably in the long run a good thing, but there really did seem to be a lot of council interest and scrutiny and focus on accountability.
Okay, there is something I do want to ask while we are just, there were a number of people who spoke out against this change at the meeting. Mm-hmm. They cited arrests of people experiencing homelessness downtown, which were made by off-duty Tennessee Highway Patrol officers who were hired by the partnership as a part of the program. Do you share those concerns?
I do, and I will say there was a moment after that arrest where our office actually reached out to the Tennessee Highway Patrol, and I think some of this enforcement action wasn't even known at that time to leadership within THP. My hope is that we, again, continue to have a lot of discussion around how we are best serving people who lack secure and stable housing, but also make sure we're maintaining the right balance between, private behaviors and public spaces. And so I think some of council's interest in this will probably help that conversation improve.
Okay. Seems like now we can get to some of our callers.
All right.
So sorry about those technical difficulties. Let's head to Tara.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Tara, thanks for your patience and persistence here.
Oh, sure. Freddie, huge fan. Thank you so much. And the show, too. I listen every day. So I'm a landscape architect. I work in downtown. And I work with stormwater management and grading and drainage plans. And up until a year ago in Metro Nashville, and I've been working here for about 15 years, landscape architects, we would do the very important stormwater management plans for the residential development. Mm-hmm. These are bioretention basins and generally other parts of Nashville that people are used to seeing. But recently, our plans have been getting rejected, and we've been told that a surveyor's stamp, not a landscape architect stamp, is what's needed for Nashville. I was not aware of any policy change, but surveyors, having had to take a couple classes in college for surveying when I was pursuing my bachelor's in landscape architecture, are nowhere near as educated or qualified to produce these plans. So I just wanted to try and understand this decision, this change, if it's something intentional or something that's just kind of happened, and what we can do to try and help get back into the fold, to do these plans and honor stormwater the way we need to in Nashville.
Yeah, Tara, thanks for flagging that. That is not a policy change that I had awareness of at this point. So let me chase that down for you. I know that I will say There's been a lot of focus on stormwater. I would hazard a guess here that you've maybe been in front of the Stormwater Management Committee before.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'd be interested to know if that committee approved something in recent months. I mean, we work very closely with Metro Water on kind of, system-wide plans. We've looked at everything from flood preparedness to bigger stormwater system enhancements that they're planning. You probably know that they've got a big master plan that they're working on that will probably be completed in the next few years. And you obviously have a keen understanding of how important stormwater management is for the city, particularly in urban environments. I'm going to have to check on this one, though. I had not heard about that change in required approvals, and so I'm happy to go back and look at whether there's something in the minutes of the Stormwater Committee or, if there's been an internal administrative policy change, and we'll follow up with you and try to share what we find with WPLN so we can follow up.
Oh, please do. And thank you so much. I really just having your ear, we've tried to get through before, so having your ear has been wonderful. Love what you do and love the show.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Well, thanks for listening. And Tara, if you don't mind, I mean, we'll make a record of this, but I think it would help too if you could summarize the changes. Feel free to send a note over to mayor@nashville.gov, and we'll follow up with that as well.
mayor@nashville.gov. I certainly will, sir. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. Looks like we've got a question from Graham here. Let's head to Graham. Graham, are you there?
Hi.
Hey, Graham.
Hi, yeah, how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Great. Hey, Mayor Freddie, I just want to say I really appreciate you, especially lately in the national conversation on ICE and the stance that you took. And I know that that's not difficult, and you've been getting some heat from that, but I just want to say I appreciate that a lot. I have a question about Metro Arts, and I know that you inherited. It's had problems for a long time. There's been issues for years here, but I know last year the grants didn't get dispersed until around May or so, and that's with the fiscal year starting in July. And I was just wondering what changes have occurred. I know there's a lot of stuff going on at Metro Legal and things behind the scenes that I probably don't understand. But I love the arts community here in Nashville, and I really believe in the small arts organizations, and I feel like they can do a lot with a little bit of money. So I'm wondering what changes have occurred and if you're hopeful that things will run smoothly this year.
Yeah, Graham, great question. And I will say, in fact, just as of this week, I'm very optimistic about what's ahead. So you probably followed some of this. We did inherit a very complicated scenario where the Arts Commission took a series of votes just before I took office that kind of were almost dueling funding levels. And then there was also this kind of difficult scenario where I think some guidance had been offered to muralists, but it amounted to a form of an unfunded mandate. And so we were very, very fortunate that across some very complicated HR matters that got resolved and a lot of attention from our legal and finance teams, we got interim leadership at the Arts Commission. We've had 2 subsequent interim arts directors, but under Director Paulette Coleman, we got a really important settlement accomplished, and while it was later than anyone wanted, we did wind up actually paying out both funding plans in their entirety as well as a funding plan for muralists before FY25 was complete. And then, yes, again, grant later than we wanted to be in the grant cycle, but now current interim director Ashley Batchelder, who helped actually offer a ton of information that resulted in a really important multi-party settlement between the Metro Human Relations Commission, the Metro Arts Commission, and Metro Legal, has now been interim arts director and spearheading a kind of rationalized one funding plan, which just got considered by Metro Council this week. And I think it should give artists this year much more predictability. I think we're going to, again, be back to sort of a stable pattern of funding. I think there's still an important ongoing conversation about how we, in a city that is growing, simultaneously support smaller arts organizations and individual artists alongside important cultural institutions like the Symphony, like our Performing Arts Center, and so forth. And so that conversation will continue, but I've been really, really pleased with Ashley's leadership at the commission, and hopefully this is a really good sign of progress made for artists, and then we'll get to come back, I think, and build on this for future budgets for the rest of this term.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, and thanks for listening to your constituents and taking calls today. Appreciate it.
Graham, thanks for the call.
Thanks for the call, Graham. We are here asking the mayor our questions, and he's also taking your questions. Join us with your question on air at 615-760. You can also join us in our live video, which is on This Is Nashville's YouTube feed. We will be back with Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell. Stay with us.
We want Freddie for a leader. Freddie is a man of class. We want Freddie for a leader. All stand and raise your champagne glass. We want Freddie for a leader.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Alliance Bernstein, built on a culture of knowledge and innovation to help advance the financial success of their clients. AllianceBernstein.com. Alliance Bernstein is not affiliated with National Public Radio. And Cheekwood, announcing the return of Thursday Night Out. Experience performances by local bands while enjoying seasonal libations and culinary delights. Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Tickets available at cheekwood.org. And Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, working to help donors make more possible through the power of community giving. More at cfmt.org.
In Afghanistan, the Taliban has a new initiative to stop illegal logging. If that sounds like the Taliban is going green, some experts say maybe not.
From my perspective, this has very little to do with conservation and very much to do with power balances.
The Taliban's interest in controlling Afghanistan's logging industry. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 2 on 90.3 WPLN News.
I'm WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams, and this is Nashville. We're taking your calls this hour and putting our own questions to Mayor Freddie O'Connell, who joins us each month. If you'd like to ask the mayor a question or voice a concern, call us at 615-760-2000. Mayor O'Connell, thank you so much again for being here.
Cynthia, good to be with you.
Gonna put one more of my own questions to you before we head to some of our callers. Last month, the Tennessee Court of Appeals ruled in favor of a state law reducing the size of the Metro Council from 40 to 20 members. Since then, your office, Metro Legal, has asked the Tennessee Supreme Court to rule on the case. What's the argument your office is making to keep the members at 40?
Well, just to be clear, our office isn't weighing in on this. This is a place where the Department of Law, I think, has a clear finding about how home rule works. And there's a particular, we're a metropolitan form of government, which sets us apart from a lot of other counties around Tennessee. There's a very small number of combined city-county governments. And so metropolitan forms of government are often treated distinctly. And I think under the state constitution, the Department of Law has a pretty strong legal argument here. And I think they felt like they made a good argument in front of the three-judge panel. And I think the reason they're asking is not because they enjoy suing the state, but I think they do feel like there is a basis in law here that we have a tool in the Metro Charter that allows the residents of Nashville and Davidson County to determine how large we want our Metro Council to be. And so I think the claim here would be that the state law that tried to do this is in fact unconstitutional. And so I think they feel very strongly that it is worth pursuing this appeal to the Supreme Court. And it is a difficult conversation because I know from talking to state legislators, there is I would say they would prefer to get this matter resolved so that this isn't a simmering fight and tension between state and local. But I think it's simultaneously important if we think that there is a constitutional basis for this not being possible under something that they've updated just the Tennessee Code annotated. There's a constitutional basis for this argument. So I think the Metro Department of Law here is correct to continue to the Supreme Court, even though it means it will probably, again, now be several months before we get this matter finalized. I think the thing that everyone wants to avoid, though, is when this law initially passed, it was basically in the very active stages of an election year. And so we'd rather, if the Supreme Court upholds the 3-judge panel's opinion and, in fact, overrules the Metro legal argument, then we do have to consider a different size of council, and that means going back and redrawing council district maps, making a decision about how many at-large members there might be, if any, what the total size would be, and then again, where those map lines are drawn, which the Planning Commission would be deeply involved in. And so we'd like to have enough time to get that done so that we're not, right up on the 2027 election cycle. So there is still some uncertainty out there about this, but I fully understand, and I'm supportive of the reasons why the Department of Law chose to pursue this appeal.
Okay, thank you. I do want to let our listeners know that we are going to be speaking with an attorney later this hour about this case. We are welcoming your calls to tell us about how you feel about the size. Okay, we are still going to be talking about the council size later this hour, and we are welcoming your calls. We want to hear about how you feel about the size of the council right now, your interactions with your council member. So please give us a call and let us know how you feel about that. For now, we are still taking calls for Mayor O'Connell. We've got one right now from Chris. Hey, Chris, are you there?
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
Chris.
What's your question for the mayor?
I heard you guys touch on it before, but it's regarding homelessness. And as someone that was homeless about 8 years ago for like a year, I had 2 jobs, I had to sleep in my car, and recently the Supreme Court kind of opened the door for people to get arrested just for sleeping in their cars. And recently I heard about the July 4th celebration here in Nashville, about a homeless encampment being cleared out for that specifically. And my view of other cities, clearing, pretty much sweeping homeless people under the rug, essentially. I just wanted to see if I can hear some specifics about what Nashville can do to, give more opportunity and not penalize people for being in their situation.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for the call. And I would say there's a mix of good news and harder scenarios to consider here. So last year, one of the most important things we did after several administrations had worked toward this goal, we opened Strobel House, which is our first public permanent supportive housing facility named for Charlie Strobel, which is really great. And I'm glad it's open, and it's got dozens of homes for people that are most at risk for experiencing chronic homelessness, and include services on site. So that's a really good thing. I'm very excited. We just a few months ago got our unified housing strategy finalized from the Housing Division at Metro Planning, and it has not just a recommendation for an approach, but also some funding for that to try to accelerate delivery of additional permanent supportive housing scenarios. And so we're excited to be moving in that direction and hoping to get some more similar projects off the ground to offer secure and stable housing to people who lack it. And then, I think the Independence Day thing was challenging because there is a site. The hard part about this is we have had some safety issues through the years with that. There was an incident a few years ago where some police officers were actually trying to keep the area, the footprint of the launch secured, and wound up kind of in the blast radius, more or less trapped in a building, which is really, again, it's a high risk scenario. And so this year we actually had one of Nashville Fire Department's fireboats have to put out a fire during the fireworks display right again in that footprint. And so it is an area that you do want to keep clear. And I think there was a question about, do you temporarily ask people to relocate so that they're not involved in a public safety incident for something that's, been a part of a public schedule, a major event for years and years? Or do you work to find opportunities for rapid rehousing there? And I think our Office of Homeless Services worked intensely with some community organizations to try to find the opportunity to get people into housing. And as in every encampment resolution scenario that I've observed, you do wind up serving a lot of people effectively, but then there are also some people who prefer to stay in that footprint. Maybe they found an area that is comfortable to them, feels safe to them. But as you've already observed, a complex set of state and federal laws means we aren't always easily able to even allow that. And so we're still working on kind of outdoor encampment policy. The Homelessness Planning Council and Continuum Care continue to work on that. Continue to try to encourage as much collaboration in that space as possible. I know it is an issue where we have tried to add investment there. I credit Mayor Cooper for taking some of our American Rescue Plan Act money, some one-time federal funding, and putting $50 million investment into some near-term solutions. And we're trying as hard as we can to keep some of that level of support sustained for the longer term. And so working on a lot of those things simultaneously, and it's just a challenging environment to make sure we take care of everybody in the city from the standpoint of offering secure and stable housing. But hopefully as we bring more overall housing online, as we accelerate permanent supportive housing, and as we continue to work on outreach and services, that we are covering as many bases as we can for people who are among the most vulnerable in the city.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for the call. And it sounds like you've got secure housing for the time being.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Glad to hear it.
Thanks so much for calling in, Chris. I'm going to head to Max. Max, do we have you on the line?
I am. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what is your
question? So that other question was a beautiful segue. I have a nonprofit called Medicine for the People that operates in Middle Tennessee trying to get resources to marginalized communities. And one of those being, obviously, homeless communities. One of the things that we run into the most that people need is, addiction services, resources, and harm reduction supplies, namely Narcan and things like that. And my friends in the community like to call them death reduction a little more than harm reduction.
Which is frequently the case in real world terms.
Exactly. And, I've already seen a decrease myself and throughout my colleagues on ability to access Narcan and some of those resources specifically for addiction, with some of the funding cuts already affecting people in Middle Tennessee. With that, I used to be able to get boxes of Narcan through a colleague that had a grant funding that's been cut, and we went from $33 a box to $53 a box with that grant. So we've almost completely lost half of our resources already, and I don't foresee that getting easier anytime soon. And I was just curious if Nashville has a plan, if you guys have a plan to kind of close that gap, so that way it's not our citizens that are dying in the streets.
Yeah, Max, it's a great question, and I'm very appreciative for how you and your organization have leaned into this. You probably know that while I think Nashville had overall a reasonably effective approach to COVID, one of the things that I think crept up on us as a city during the pandemic was that we weren't as focused on the opioid epidemic in particular. And so as I took office, we were unfortunately one of the worst performing cities there. But again, thanks to some work with opioid settlement scenarios and our efforts to reconstitute our Behavioral Health and Wellness Advisory Committee, and frankly, the leadership of Councilmember Erin Evans, who I served with for several years, who's really had a focus on this and bridged from her work on COVID oversight into this space, we've had some really good success in exactly what you're talking about, death reduction. We've really bent the curve downward thanks to organizations like yours. I know Neighborhood Health has worked a lot on this. Sergeant Hotz with our Metro Nashville Police Department has worked a lot on this. Benton McDonough and our Office of Nightlife has worked a lot on this. And so we've expanded people's willingness to have scenarios like one box and overall both Narcan and naloxone availability. The supply side is going to get more challenging. And I might ask, where were you working through state-based supplies and state-based funding opportunities, or what has been the actual place where your costs have gone up?
So for me specifically, since I have a really broad-reaching platform and we have a kind of a wide scope, so that way we can try and fill as many gaps as we can in various communities. For myself specifically, with Medicine for the People, where we were getting our Narcan from was another nonprofit that we work really close with called Chase Away Fentanyl.
Okay.
Which is named after one of my best friends that passed away a couple years ago. His father started it, and their only mission is death reduction and saving lives.
Yep.
And so that was my main supplier. I also did have some contacts through the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services that was supplying here and there, but we've seen a dramatic drop. I can't speak on the specifics of Alan at Chase Away Fentanyl's grant funding, and where exactly that grant that was cut. I know it was part of some of those cuts that everybody's...
we saw a lot of DOJ cuts. I'm very concerned about the rescissions package that's working through Congress right now for the same reasons. And I'll just say, Max, overall, the hard part about this landscape is we are stepping up to backfill some things. And so our approach to the budget this year, we did bolster some programs that have had recurring federal funding or had some state funding, and we've actually watched... for instance, in the domain of public education, we have steadily changed the balance of overall funding so that Metro's share of funding our public schools is much, much larger because we've watched state funding recede, but we know that we're seeing performance gains and we want to continue to invest in those. The same thing is true in public health, where that was the first round of job losses of Metro employees we faced was directly as a result of federal cuts in public health. I think it's going to be challenging for a while, but what I would ask is if you'd send a note to mayor@nashville.gov talking about some of the the sources you've seen and the costs, be happy to try to connect you. I know as I've talked to our folks on the Behavioral Health and Wellness Advisory Committee, as I've talked to Benton McDonough, as we've seen an expansion of people willing to participate in this at the community and business level, organizations, schools, a lot of our entertainment establishments, sports facilities. We're starting to see really good community participation. But I do have a concern on the supply side, and so we want to track that as much as possible. So if you'll send us a note, I'd love to follow up and maybe help you make some more connections.
Yeah, of course. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, Max, thanks for the call.
Thanks, Max. Mayor O'Connell, I do want to ask, we're talking about federal funding. Earlier this month, we saw President Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful Bill be signed into law.
That I don't call it that, but it has been called that, yes.
Yes. The bill expands tax cuts in exchange for cuts to Medicaid, Obamacare health coverage, and SNAP benefits. Talk to me about what impact that bill will have for Nashvillians.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. I don't know that I've ever seen something like this that is such an extraordinary flow of wealth from lower income Americans to higher income Americans. I looked at a bunch of fiscal analysis of this, and it's really ultimately has the impact of increasing cost of living for low income Americans. And sometimes it's directly because of cuts to federal programs, but the tax cuts alone start to increase income availability to people who already have appreciable income availability and make it even harder among working class Americans. And so it's a real challenge, and we know that there is going to be impact on SNAP. We know there is going to be impact on Medicaid. And I'm honestly pretty surprised that both chambers of Congress approved it without a little more consideration for how it is going to impact communities. So we're watching, you probably saw just a few weeks ago, Vanderbilt University Medical Center has already laid off 600 employees. They are at hundreds of millions of dollars reduction to their budget. I am surprised that, frankly, hospital administrators across the country didn't weigh in a little more forcefully to try to limit some of the Medicaid impact. And as a state in Tennessee, where we haven't expanded Medicaid under provisions under the Affordable Care Act already, we're starting from behind. So if we see further cuts, it is going to be very, very challenging here from a healthcare access and health outcome standpoint. So we're doing everything we can at a local level. As I was sharing with Max, we just increased the amount of support we're offering to the Nashville Strong Babies program, which offers year one and prenatal support for mothers and infants, trying to help more babies celebrate their first birthday. We are working, our office has an RFI out, a request for information for a new food security program. We increased funding for Metro Social Services this year for basic nutrition. We are working on every possible angle to help increase wages through a new pay plan for Metro employees, but also, as we go out and look at contracts, making sure that we're setting up a structure that lets people have entry points into our growing workforce. And of course, I'm very excited about the pace of housing affordability in terms of number of projects we've either broken ground on or cut the ribbon on. Just yesterday, I was out at 445 Park Commons at the fairgrounds. It's 335 new homes, fully 160 of them have either price points at a workforce point within area median income, and then another several dozen at 0 to 60% of area median income. So they've reserved those, met a housing commitment. We just broke ground on Park Commons for some affordable housing for people who may be experiencing mental health or substance abuse disorders. So we've got to keep that pipeline very, very active because, we've been working on an affordability agenda from day one. I think we're also very lucky as we look at other cities around the country right now. Philadelphia and Chicago are facing true crises in their transit systems, and we're in the very fortunate position where, with the support of an overwhelming number of Nashville voters, we're advancing a transit improvement program that's already resulted in not just basic service changes, but also access on demand, which supports our riders with disabilities. So we're doing a whole lot of things to try to take care of vulnerable and at-risk Nashvillians and overall have an impact on affordability in the city, even as the federal government seems to be moving the other direction.
Okay. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm your host, WPLN's Metro reporter, Cynthia Abrams, here with Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell. We are taking your calls, and I do want to get to one more of them. We've got Terry. Terry, what is your call for the mayor? Question for the mayor.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor, for taking my call and giving me the opportunity.
Hey, Terry.
I just wanted to find out if there was anything new that was happening with the Foxtrot Carousel that right now, that sits in the basement of the Tennessee State Museum. I think it's just a beautiful artistic piece. Kids would love it. We just need to find a place somewhere, maybe downtown. I think it's already paid for.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting it out of the museum and moving it to a site where people can see it.
No, you know what? Based on just this show alone, I've got to say I'm pleasantly surprised by the level of community interest that remains out there for that carousel. Back years ago when I was working just as kind of an area neighborhood leader in my neighborhood, and just around the corner, Jason Powell was in the Hope Gardens neighborhood, and we talked some about it because we were both right on the corner of what became now the Tennessee State Museum. Jason now serving as Representative Powell in Southeast Nashville. I know we've discussed it. It's something that I had hoped might work into the funding discussion for the State Museum itself, because I think you've got probably enough land in that Capitol Mall footprint to find a good possible permanent home for it. It is something I'm still interested in and working with state collaborators on, because as I understand it, it's actually a state asset. So it would have to be a good state and local partnership. But
Sure.
As somebody who rode that carousel myself, I would love to see it return to, a great destination of fun and beauty for the community.
I love it. Great. I'm glad that you're at least aware of it and do have what sounds like a plan. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Terry. Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell, thank you so much for the time and effort your team make to be here every month, live on air to take our listeners' questions. We'll see you next month.
All right. Cynthia, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Up next, as we mentioned, the number of elected Metro Council members may be cut in half. After the break, we'll hear a WPLN report on the 60-year history behind the council size and the effect the change could have. We'll be right back. This is Nashville.
Raise your champagne glass.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. And Ryman Auditorium, presenting Margot Price, Wild at Heart Tour, live at the Ryman on November 20th. Hard-Headed Woman album available August 29th. Tickets on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. at Ryman.com. And Belcourt Theater, now playing Ari Aster's Eddington and Eva Victor's Sorry Baby, and through this Tuesday, Albert Serra's documentary Afternoons of Solitude, and opening July 29th, Dave Franco and Allison Brie in Together, belcourt.org. And Hub Nashville, reminding that for an emergency that requires urgency, call 911. For everything else, call 311 or Hub it with the Hub Nashville app. More at hubnashville.gov.
Best journalism in the nation. That's an apt description for a lot of what you hear on WPLN News. The proof this spring is in the array of journalism awards coming in. The Supermajority podcast won 3 national contests. Our investigative reporting, partnered with ProPublica, was named some of the best education coverage in the country. And for arts and culture, This Is Nashville and our music journalism are being honored on the national stage. We're proud, and you can be too.
I'm Cynthia Abrams, and this is Nashville. Last month, an appeals court upheld a state law reducing the Nashville Metro Council from 40 members to 20. WPLN recently reported on the 60-year history behind the council size and the effect the change could have on the candidates and their constituents.
In 2023, state legislators passed a law that would slash the size of Nashville's 40-member Metro Council. Metro has been fighting this in court, but the latest ruling sided with a smaller council. Now Metro is requesting to take the case to the Tennessee Supreme Court. WPLN's Cynthia Abrams reports Metro is citing constitutional violations and the original reasons for having a large council.
Nashville's Metro Council has consisted of 40 members since Metro's inception more than 60 years ago, as touted in an early State of Metro address.
I'm proud to say the job of consolidation has been done.
In 1963, Nashville became the first metropolitan government in the United States. When voters approved the consolidation of the city and the county, the size of the council was a factor. Having 40 members helped voters get on board, particularly those concerned about representation of Black Nashvillians.
The number 40 is not some random number. There's a history behind it.
That's Wally Dietz, Metro's law director.
And it has to do to making sure that our council is reflective of the residents who live here.
The history is just one of the reasons city leaders and many council members are against a smaller body. The council is made up of 35 district council members, plus 5 at-large, who are elected by the whole city. It is the third largest council in the country, although many places have separate city and county governments. Councilmember Delicia Porterfield contends the size of the body helps ensure diversity.
The council very closely represents many demographics of our city and county. So we have council members that identify as Black, immigrant. We have our first Haitian American. We have a Vietnamese American council member. We have.
Porterfield says that even if racial diversity was maintained in a smaller council, socioeconomic diversity would be lost.
When you reduce the size of a council, you risk making those races significantly more expensive.
With candidates campaigning for fewer seats, campaigns become more competitive and start to cost more. This can be a barrier for working-class candidates. There's also concern about larger districts, whether in population or just sprawl, making it harder to connect with constituents. And there's also the feeling that this law is against the will of the people who voted in 1962. Here's Councilmember Zulfat Swara.
This ruling, if it stays, is a slap on that history, the intentionality of the people of Nashville wanting a government that is representative.
Not only did voters create the 40-member body 60 years ago, but they also upheld that size in 2015, when a referendum sought to shrink it.
If the people of Davidson County feel like the council is too big for whatever reason, then the state should have allowed us to go to the ballot and for the people of Davidson County to vote.
In passing the new law, the state argued that smaller councils are more efficient. House Majority Leader William Lamberth sponsored the legislation back in 2023.
20 is the maximum because you will find very few successful and effective cities or any group, quite frankly, that goes beyond 20. Group dynamics get to a point where it simply doesn't work very well together.
The law caps all councils in Tennessee at 20. And while it applies to the whole state, Nashville is the only council bigger than that. So in their request to the Supreme Court, Metro argues that it is unfairly targeting them. They're also arguing that Tennessee's constitution gives metros the power to set their own council size, and that it's voter ballot measures that can change them over time. Here's Dietz.
The Constitution gives them that right, and it's up to the people of Nashville, not the legislators, to decide the size of our legislative body.
Metro Legal has compiled all of those arguments into its request to appeal to the Tennessee Supreme Court. However, the Supreme Court doesn't have to take the case. And if they don't, that's it. Nashville's Metro Council will be cut in half for the 2027 election. In that case, there would be some debate around what the new council districts would look like and how many at-large countywide members there would be. Metro actually did rush to draft new maps back in 2023 when the law initially passed.
We are having conversations about what happens if the worst-case scenario happens.
For now, Nashville has 2 more years of its 40-member body. But the large council could be on the line if the Supreme Court doesn't take the case or doesn't side with the city. If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville. I'm your host, Cynthia Abrams. We just heard a feature about the Metro Council size that I did report, and I am continuing to follow. Metro has recently filed the Rule 11 petition application because there is no automatic right to appeal to the Supreme Court. You have to request to appeal. So that is what Metro has done. They are waiting to see what the state will respond and what the Supreme Court will decide. I will be following that. Thank you so much for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Mary Mancini and yours truly. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our technical director and board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or on the This Is Nashville podcast feed. You can also watch on the This Is Nashville's YouTube. The conversation doesn't end here. You can comment and tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on Blue Sky and Instagram and X, all at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Cynthia Abrams. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners.